right, everyone, how are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, I sit down with Andre LeBlanc. Andre is a visual effects artist who works on the Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots. We talk a little bit about that. We talk about how he got into the whole visual effects game, his love of filmmaking, his love of horror movies, and he's also a writer and director who has written and directed a few short films, two of which I watched this week, Creator and Mask. And when I tell you these movies are really, really good, believe me. We talk about that. He talks about the process of making it, when he knows a film is done, and what he's got planned for the future. It was a lot of fun getting to know Andre after a friend of ours has been trying to connect us, and we finally got it done. All right, guys, let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
Hey, my name is Andre LeBlanc. I am a visual effects artist, visual effects supervisor in my day job, but I also do a lot of filmmaking on the side as well, sci-fi and horror primarily.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, thanks for doing this, Andre. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I've watched a couple of your shorts. What have you always been into filmmaking? Have you always been into film, and just were you a fan of movies and such when you were a kid?
Absolutely. I mean, it's that kind of that cliched story of like from like a very young age, putting pictures together.
Yeah.
Growing up in a time where cameras weren't so ubiquitous as they are now, of course, where we have our phones and stuff like that. So I usually resorted to drawing. So a lot of the stuff that I got into from an early age was comic books and drawing out comic books. And I reached a point where I was trying to sell my own comic books, at a very young age. But basically, that's what got me into it. That was my way into film and trying to do my own filmmaking editorially, I guess, was through drawing.
Right on. Were you making your own storyboards and such whatnot?
Oh yeah, for sure. So, and that has kind of persisted right up until this day where it's like storyboarding is like a huge component of the filmmaking process for me. So like storyboards are kind of like a comic, they're a technical comic book, but they kind of follow the same logic. And I guess it's like a natural progression. And for me, like especially in those early days, I was also really into computers. And there was like a marriage there at that point between like sort of like the technology and the art, which kind of led me into visual effects eventually, and that was really my direct way into the process. But I've always been like a huge film fan. Going to as a kid, going to the cinema like every single week, watching a lot of obscure movies. I mean, really, really, really was felt like a call, felt like a calling.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite movie?
It depended on the day, you know. I mean, there were movies that had hugely influenced me when I was growing up as a younger person. Movies that just kind of broke my brain, so to say. Like I loved The Exorcist, but growing up seeing uh, movie like Silence of the Lambs when I was way too young.
Yeah.
That broke my brain. That influenced me. The first movie where I became aware of filmmaking as a thing, as something that people did, was Aliens, the sequel, the Cameron version, and of course, Alien as well. But that movie, Aliens in particular, just came at a point where I was kind of coming of an age where I could sort of try and figure out what was going on, and that
Yeah.
was a huge influence on me. So those have all been favorites, but my favorite spans like a very, very wide range, from like David Lynch to Scorsese to, all the big names that we know and love. And depending on the week, the month,
Yeah.
it changes. But growing up, those were the movies that I tended to love were the ones that sort of impacted me, or I couldn't get out of my head at the time that I saw them.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned The Exorcist because The
Yeah,
Exorcist, when I first saw it, it scared the hell out of me.
yeah,
Um, and and continues to do so even in this day and age. Like I'll watch it, then I'll have to turn on all the lights. But several years ago, I showed it to my son. I was like, "Ah, you haven't seen a movie like this," and he was unfazed by it. And do you
right.
think that's because younger kids or younger generation have just kind of been um what's the word I'm looking, exposed to so much stuff that
For
you
sure.
know we were
Yeah, well, I mean, even like for myself, like the first time I saw like an Exorcist parody was in the movie Ghostbusters, and I saw Ghostbusters before I saw The Exorcist, and it came over 10 years after The Exorcist was released, and so there's been so many parodies, and so some of those scenes are kind of like part of the vernacular, like they're
yeah
just they just exist and
yeah
and we take them for granted. But I think if you were to flash back to like the mid 70s and watch that for the first time, it's a totally different thing, because even like the sounds of like a kid talking with a voice that wasn't hers, that was new, like
yeah
everything was new. And now we've seen it 1,000 times. But the
yeah
story is still so great, and it has that dramatic family component that really works even without the horror.
yeah. I I agree, and they've even this, I guess, this most recent uh Exorcist. I don't know if you call it a sequel or what. The one that was released a couple of years ago. It was really good.
Right.
I thought they.
Yeah, and I'm actually a fan of the third Exorcist, the one with George C. Scott.
Oh yeah,
It's an interesting story. It's more of a police procedural, but I think it's really worth watching. It's a different type of movie, but it doesn't try and redo what the original Exorcist did. It's its
exactly.
own thing, and so it's really cool.
I thought so too. I really like that, and I like the two of the same ones that they released. The four
Oh, I know
they
which ones you're talking about.
they
Like
were
one's
both this.
directed by like John Frankenheimer, and I've actually not seen those. I
Yeah,
will
they're actually
admit.
pretty good, but
Okay, I'll have to check them out.
yeah. Were you making movies, your own movies as a kid once you got to that?
So, because of like my lack of like just by the time and like the place, we there just wasn't a lot of resources like in camera stuff when and where I grew up. And so I really did resort to like drawing more than I did making movies, drawing comics. The first movie that I can remember making, I think I was probably around 12 years old. We had a camera borrowed or something like that. And I remember uh, just running around town, having my mom drive me around town so we could go to all the secondhand shops and pick up props and stuff like that. And that was and we were doing things that were like editorial, like we were editing almost in camera at that point, because you wouldn't go on to Avid or Premiere Pro. None of that stuff really existed. So you were just editing in camera. So whatever tape you had in the camera, that's what you were editing in. But it kind of gave you a really good sense, and I of the process. And I remember learning a lot of like, just camera trickery and things like that. That's the first movie I can remember making. But really, a lot of it kind of like segued into computers, and a lot of it for me was like, I thought, like for me, it's always been story. Everything is about story. I've always
Yeah.
been like sort of like a storyteller, whether that is like through a comic, through a picture, through a movie, through whatever. And I thought, well, we have a computer. If I can learn how to make story-based games on the computer, maybe that'll be my entry. And that's really kind of what I started doing, because we didn't have the camera, and that would have been like me in my teens, and that's kind of what led me into sort of like the technical side, like computer science, but eventually back into art much later down the road. But all of it was done through like sort of like a lens of like, how do I tell a story?
Yeah. And that led you into the visual effects world.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's sort of like a practical way for me to live out the filmmaking process. within the industry while also like pursuing these other creative pursuits
Yeah.
on the
But yeah,
side.
it allows you to be part of it. And
Yep.
sometimes that's all it takes, man, is just to be part of it, you know?
Yeah, you're in it, and you're making stuff. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
It's very similar to what I do. I'm just part of the show, just a
Yeah.
very small part, but I'm part of
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely and depending on the project, there can be a lot of parts, right?
Yeah.
Some shows are small and there's only a few people, and so you can play a big part, and some are massive, and
Yeah.
your part is big to you, but on the whole, might
Exactly.
be fairly insignificant.
I'm looking up and I'm seeing lights and audio and all kinds of trusses, and I'm like, who are all these people that are putting it up? And a lot of times,
Yeah,
like we recently finished just a short run, and I didn't get to meet all of the people. There was, so
I
many
can
people on the
imagine.
tour, and I didn't meet all of them. So,
Yeah.
but like you said, when it's a small project, you meet not only know everyone, you get sick of everyone.
Yeah, that can happen if I guess if you're in a really tight space for a long period of time over long hours.
Yeah, 100%. Um, you've done a few big studio projects. You worked on Love and Death. I really wanted to ask you about this. What was your role on Love and Death?
So Love, Death and Robots, that's the Netflix show, and it's
Uh-huh.
it's basically like an anthology genre series animated in different styles where each episode is like a different style of animation, a different story. There's
Hmm.
no continuations from one episode to the next. And it's been going on for 4 seasons. There's 4 seasons now available. And I've worked on about 10 episodes. And my role in that has always been as a visual effects artist, visual effects lead, which would be someone who is actually doing, and just so like people have like a little bit of a basis, what is a visual effects artist? That can be sort of like broken down into all these different facets. There's lighters, there's like sort of like in live action or staging, there's people that build props. And my role was always on the effects side, which is like special effects on the digital
Uh-huh.
realm. So it'd be like explosions, gore, blood, destruction, oceans, dynamics, things like the elements, we have a building we need to explode. Well, that's I'm going to be there to explode it good, and that's kind of like the realm that I occupy within the industry, which is which is pretty big in and of itself. It can encompass a lot of things. It can encompass magic. It can encompass like weird technology like holograms, and
Yeah.
all tends to fall under the guise of effects,
Yeah.
which is under sort of like animation and VFX, visual effects, but it's like that one tier because you also have like animators who animate characters, and you have modelers who build the environments and the characters. But for me, it's been effects, and that's primarily what I've done on the LDR stuff, Love, Death, and Robots, and it's also usually my bread and butter for most of the projects that I've worked on at different levels. From like like an animator, like just someone who's doing the actual shots, all the way up to a supervisor, which would be running a team.
Yeah. Have you run into anything that you can't do yet? Like when they ask you, hey, you know,
It,
it's called
it,
for like an
prob
explosion.
The problem is like everything can be done. It's always a question of time and
Ah,
and and time management and setting your
I
expectations.
need it done yesterday.
Right. We can do it. We just need the time. And so it's usually never and time it kind of dictates the quality and the level that you're gonna do it at. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you have more time, you can get into it and do something like really spectacular. And sometimes less time, you're doing something that is quick and dirty and then moving on.
Yeah. I know, man. Well, that was really what you do. I'm always impressed by how when you see that. Now I know. I always think, oh, it's just one special effect guy doing everything. It's Rick Baker back there making everything.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the project, there can be a lot. There
Yeah,
can be a lot of us
yeah,
putting stuff in, or on a smaller project, maybe it is just one.
yeah.
So it all depends.
Eh. Well, you've got a couple of projects that I've personally watched of your own. You have a few, but some short films. One I wanted to talk to you about was The Creator.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and when did you make that movie?
So we filmed that pre-pandemic, so probably around 2019.
2019.
And at the time, like a lot of the concepts that are in it, sort of like the some of the AI stuff now, which feels like, I mean, feels like this might be real. It didn't really exist. There was no like Midjourney was not even like a concept at that. Well, I mean, I'm sure it was a concept,
Yeah,
but it was not something that it wasn't a concept that we had access to.
yeah,
And so the tools of like what people were doing in artificial intelligence were much, much cruder. And so this whole idea of like a computer being able to just generate random images, from whatever it finds on the internet. I mean, that was like that sounded like magic. I mean, now it's like every day, right?
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
know.
2019 is when we actually filmed it.
Yeah, and watching it, I told you I watched it the other day, and then I watched it again. Was it this? No, my days are running together. I just got off tour, but I just watched it again recently, and it's so interesting to me that the concepts in that, like you said, I wanted to know when you filmed it
Yeah,
because I I listened to a few cats on tour that are always talking about AI. AI actually scares me. I'm
right.
not afraid to say that, but for when you did it now, it's just what you did then is so the thought is antiquated now for what they're doing with AI.
It feels obvious,
Yeah.
right?
Like, oh yeah, of course that'll happen. But for the time you filmed it, that was like, oh, that's a great concept.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
that's really cool. There's no way that'll happen.
Right, right. So yeah, so like the basic premise being that these three people stuck in a room with this computer that is generating images of their deaths in
Yeah.
various aspects, in various ways, and they can't figure out. I guess the sci-fi aspect of it is they can't figure out whether this thing is doing it randomly or if it's predicting or if it's a predictor, because the more they get
Yeah.
into it, the more they seem to be leading
Yeah.
themselves to these violent
Yeah.
consequences.
Or it's influencing them into
Exactly,
doing it,
yeah.
which could
Yeah.
also you could you could tie that in with the way social media influences and all this,
I
you know.
that was a big part of it and a big draw for the project. Like, so the root of the project actually wasn't specifically AI. It was this whole idea, and even now the idea is a little bit more antiquated. But like the whole idea of like content flaggers, the people that were sort of policing social media, and they would generally a lot of those people like. I mean, they could be anywhere. A lot of times they would be in Southeast Asia, places like that, and they would just be staring at their computer screen, and they would be evaluating certain content that comes in, video, images, in determining whether it was safe uh, for the site or not. So, on a site like, a big social media site, you might have hundreds of those people that were just essentially looking at their computer as images would flash, and they would either accept them or reject them. And most of those people, suffered from extreme PTSD from the stuff that they were seeing, because you can imagine that it was
Yeah.
all sorts of crazy stuff, depending, And that was really one of the interesting things to me, like as a concept, is like because our computers are the sort of like the AI models are kind of being fed the same stuff, which is leading them to their own like prognoses and whatnot. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. Imagine a computer that is just exposed to that all day long, and
Yeah.
what types of ideas it might have about humanity, type of thing. So
Yeah, I found it, like I said, I watched two of your films, and that one really stuck out. The other one is more, I do want to talk about Mask. But creator, I had to go back to it to
I think it's that type of thing where you kind of leaves it's a little bit more open-ended too by the end of it, so you can kind of and the style is a little bit different. So for Creator, which is a short film, it's in black and white, and the style is kind of like reminiscent. I would say even the music is reminiscent of a little bit of like Twilight Zone from the
yeah,
1960s, specifically the tone, the style. There's, it kind of breaks away from that eventually, but that was kind of that was a choice,
yeah,
and in terms of like sort of rooting it in this world. I think that gives it maybe a little bit more of a timeless quality that doesn't in that way doesn't need to feel like it's on the bleeding edge, because I think everything about it, from the computer itself to like the designs and everything, it doesn't feel like it's trying to emulate something that's current. It feels like,
yeah,
hopefully it's its own thing.
yeah, yeah. And I love the, I don't want to give away, but the ending, how you pan out, you just pan out, and just you don't know what's going on in there. It
Right.
just pans out,
Yes.
and it's you know, I expected something in the silhouette to come up, but nothing. So, what's the hardest part about writing and directing your own little short films or your own films?
That's a good question. I mean, I think most people would say, and this is certainly like one of the really, really tough parts, is like, I think it's the resources and the
Uh-huh.
time, because making a film is, it can be cheap if you're just doing it in your kitchen, but it
Yeah,
can also be expensive if you're looking for locations and you need actors and you need equipment. And so I think one of the hardest parts is wrangling those resources. But I would say on the artistic side, that's more on the production side. I'd say on the
yeah,
artistic side, it is the writing. The writing is so hard. It is just really, really one of these things that never gets finished. Eventually, you just have to move on to the next phase. Otherwise, you could be writing forever. And so like typically, I might spend, even on a short, I could spend months
yeah.
writing a short. You could write a draft in like a day, but like you spend so much time trying to make it work and breaking it apart, and
And that
figuring
was
out.
my next question. How do you decide when it's finished? Like, how do you?
I think you get to a point, I think you never really know 100%, but I think you get to a point where, what I would say, at least for me, is I get to a point where once I start getting feedback from outside people that I don't necessarily agree with, once I get to that point where I have my own answer to their
uh,
feedback, which is to say that, like, I understand what you're saying, but this is what I'm trying to do. Once I get to that point, then I kind of know it's like, okay, this is my intention. This is it.
mhm.
And you could probably spend more time writing and looping, but the danger is you can actually start to go backwards as well in the writing process. You can take something that's working and you can turn it into something that maybe isn't working. It's not that hard to like, because these things are very intricate. They're very delicate, especially as you get further in the process where the characters start to get fleshed out and everything has a reason. Once
Yeah,
you start breaking that stuff with, successive rewrites, you really create ripple effects that can hurt. And so you do kind of have to, at a certain point, you have to stop
yeah.
and say, here we go.
For the average viewer, we're talking about a 15-minute short film.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you've already said you could spend months just in the writing
Yeah.
process. What is the average time it takes to make a film like that? Because you're telling for that amount of time, you're trying to catch their attention, you're trying to tell a story, and you're trying to close it up at the same
Right.
time. But like sometimes you'll leave it open, you
Yeah.
know?
So again, that is very dependent. Like, so like you can do, like, we could shoot a short film, a 2-minute short film in the living room, two people having a conversation, edit it, be done in a week,
Mhm.
or less maybe. For something like Creator, which has like such a big production, in a
Yeah.
sense, for a short, we, it has its own set. that was built in a warehouse. It has, a lot of post production. It has a lot of stylistic elements.
Yeah.
That took 2 years, and so there's the writing process, which probably took a few months. I'm not sure over time, not full time. But then there's the pre-production, there's like the planning, we all getting the people, and that takes time as well. That can take at least several weeks. And then there's the pre-production, which is putting the set together, which can take a couple of days, and then there's the shoot, which is a few days, and then there's the post, and that's where the real time commitment comes in. And in this case, something as visual, which has like a lot of visual elements that need to be like generated from scratch, figured out. A lot of it is like you're trying to figure out what the visuals are. That took over a year, and there's some elements in there which took a really, really long time. If we were to do it today, I think we could do some things quicker, but the difference is that if we were to do it today, we would do it different, and it would probably also take the same amount of time because we'd be trying to do something new
Yeah.
that's not been done, and so you take just as much time. And so by the end of it, you're looking at like 2 years for a short film like that, with the sound and the music and et cetera, et
Wow.
cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how does
Yeah.
it feel when someone like me who has nothing to do with film tells you, like, "I was so intrigued by it, I went back and watched it again," you know?
I love it. I mean, the warms my heart. It
Yeah,
warms
were
my
you
heart.
excited at at the finished product yourself?
It's an interesting one. Like I go through phases with my own work, and it's usually never. I would never call it excitement. I would call it. Gonna sound really, you know, it's hard. It's hard to come away from your work, at least for me, and look back at it, and I can be proud of the commitment and like everything that went into it, but it's hard for me to evaluate something that I've done and not see the things that I would like to do better. And so I always come away from a project feeling like, well, next time we'll do better, we'll do this better, we'll do that
Yeah.
better. And you spend so long on it that the problems tend to they tend to take hold and become like sort of like everything for you. So when I look at these projects, it's not really like it's not excitement as much as it is um, like sort of like passive acceptance.
Spoken like a true artist.
Right. Yes.
Um, I wanna talk to you a little bit about, your short film, Mask.
Yes.
Um, where did the idea for Mask come from?
You know, I don't know where the idea specifically comes from, but it probably comes from an image, things that I've listened to. I think that maybe the core concept came from a podcast that I'd heard once, but essentially the idea of masks is husband has a wife. She's completely catatonic after an accident. She's been that way for a long time, at least a year. And through the course of the story, the husband realizes that when he puts a mask on her, like a cheap Halloween mask, she comes out of that catatonic state, right? So she starts to awaken, but only as the character of the mask itself.
Yeah.
And so, he has that hope in him, and he decides that he's going to, push this experiment to the most extreme the most extreme consequence that you can basically imagine, and unfortunate for him. But I think that I had originally like the concept of putting on a mask and taking on that character. There are I think that there are ideas of that in some of the Japanese na masks. I think
Uh-huh.
is that's part of the, but I don't know if I was even drawing from that so much as I remember once maybe I was because it's hard to know where these ideas come from. But I'd heard a podcast once of uh, it was like a neuroscientist who was dealing with an amputee. He had had an arm amputated, but he had phantom pain in his hand
Uh-huh.
from the arm that was amputated. But what they realized is that they put a mirror up in front of him to reflect his non-amputated side to look like to his amputated side, and do like a thought imagination of like him opening up his right hand, the non-amputated hand, while looking in the mirror and imagining it was his left hand. It would take the pain away, and it worked.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, like imagine like sort of like extrapolating that and having an idea like that with the mind, like basically someone who's non-communicative, catatonic, wheelchair bound, unresponsive, and trying to trigger some sort of a response in that person with a mask while seeing themselves. I think that might be a part of it, but uh, there's also like, and this is true of creator as well, and everything else I've done. There's always this in all the shorts. There's always like a very big focus on photographs. And it's true in masks, it's true in creator for sure. And a lot of it involves what is the truth behind a photograph, and what's the story behind it. And with creator, they're getting these photographs of them and their impending death. So are these photos real? What's the story behind these photos? In masks, Tim is like investigating his own past through photographs, and he decides to extrapolate that to its most, I guess, to its core idea is that he takes a photo and he makes a mask out of it,
Yeah.
and sort of like that is sort of like taking it to the extreme. But that's another reason I think it's sort of like a natural progression for me for masks. But I also love horror at the end of the day, so that's another
Yeah.
big reason.
Yeah. And why do you think masks are so powerful in horror movies?
I think it's a couple of things. Um I think it's because you can't see the face behind the face type of
Yeah.
thing. I think that's one of the things. And so you can't see the expression, you can't see the anger, the happiness. You really can't see who it is. And in our case, it's the wife. She has a mask on her face that's sort of bringing her out of her catatonic state, and the mask is actually of her face on her face,
Yeah.
but it gives it it gives it kind of like this really unnatural there's a term for it, like uncanny valley type of feeling to it, where you can't quite see her eyes, you can't quite see her mouth. It looks kind of like her but different, and I think all of these things kind of come together to create something that's really unsettling to a
Yeah.
viewer. I think that's true with masks in general. I think when you can't see, like when you can't see the face or the eyes clearly, like the eyes are the windows to the soul. But once that's gone, I mean,
Yeah.
you're trying to figure that out without that information, and I think that immediately becomes scary.
Yeah. Well, it's an original idea that from what and I'm a big horror guy, like that's my genre.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed on how you did that, and you know, you notice I didn't go back to that one a second time.
Yeah, yeah. We call that a one and done.
Yeah, one and done, and then then I start thinking like I have some mask in my room, like I'm not gonna,
Right, right. When we were doing the pre-production for that, a lot of the hard work for something like masks, which is really simple as a concept, but the difficulty came with the mask itself, and I had to do a lot of testing of like paper masks on my own face, walking around my place with this mask on, and my wife catching me with the mask on. I mean, she didn't like it either. Uh,
well, like
and
you said, mask. It's mask. You think about Friday the 13th, like
right,
any disfigured person who's been had a accident like that. Okay, that's that. But when he puts the mask on with the one eye hole, that creeps it out.
yeah, or even like Halloween, Mike Myers mask.
You know.
Simple masks can be really scary
Yeah.
compared to something that's like, overtly emotional and evil, or
Yeah.
demonic or something like that. Sometimes something very simple ambiguous and neutral, that can be scarier.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, wow, yeah. Uh, I really enjoyed both of the movies that both
Oh,
of
cool.
the films that I watched of yours, and I look forward. Is there anything you're working on now, uh, of your personal projects right now? Or are you in the in between projects?
I'm I'm I am actively working on a feature version of Masks actually, because the concept is what we call contained. It's so
Hmm.
contained, like it's it's like it's not like big sci-fi world building. It's not like tons of locations, and it is really like a small story. It's really like a family. And so it is a natural fit for something that can be like made into like a feature. So I've been working on that for a while now.
Yeah.
Again, you going through that beautiful writing process, and that is hopefully what the next thing will be. I think I've come to this point where I'm trying to avoid not entirely, but my focus is away from shorts,
Uh-huh.
and trying to make something bigger. And so that is the focus. And and at the same time, I am actively, even today, working in visual effects at the studio, working on a show for Amazon right now. And but yeah, so like the big thing for me is over the next however long it takes. Sometimes these
Yeah,
things take a long time, but it is pushing the idea of mass, taking that short story and the thing that people really reacted to, and adapting that to something that could be told in like 90 minutes or something
yeah.
like that.
Well, I look forward to that because, like I said, the short was really creepy.
Right, that's the word.
I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
No, I
it
think that's
definitely
the way
made
to
me feel
describe it.
uncomfortable for a minute,
And
so
yeah, and the shorts. So most of my shorts, a lot of them are available online now. Masks, of course, is not right now.
yeah,
There's a teaser trailer, because it does its festival run, but I'm always happy to share it with anyone who's interested
yeah.
in taking a look.
And where can they find Creator if they want to?
So a creator is actually up on us on there's a YouTube channel called Alter. And so, and Alter is a horror adjacent YouTube channel that just distributes screens, shorts, in that genre, 15 minutes long. Usually, there's some really fantastic work on there. And I recommend anyone who wants to have like a fix of like sort of scary, dark, maybe a mix of comedy, horror short films, horror adjacent. Take a look at Alter, the YouTube channel, and if you look up creator on the Alter channel, you'll find it there, and that's the primary hosting site for it. It's also on my Vimeo page. If you ever want to look up, a lot of my shorts are on my Vimeo page. So Andre LeBlanc, my Vimeo page should bring that up. But creators on there. Another one called Day Watch, which was done before earlier than that. Um, Also sci-fi, and then another one which I did. If you want to go way back, there's one called The Storm on there, which is an earlier film that I did. Uh, but yeah, those are all on the Vimeo page. But otherwise, if you go to Alter, you should find Creator on
Okay,
there.
well, we'll definitely link both of those to the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Andre, thank you so much, man. It's been so cool getting to know you and talking about these two films that I watched this week and was like, and I,
Right.
like you said, I was on Alter's YouTube page and I was watching all kinds of stuff on there.
Oh, you did go there.
Yeah,
Oh, fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah, they have a great catalog. It's
yeah,
definitely worth spending some time and seeing some of the work that other filmmakers are putting out on there. So,
yeah. It's a great way to discover independent films.
yep, for sure.
Well, where if people wanted to find you online, I know where could they look?
My main social media is Instagram, Andre LeBlanc, just my name. You find me on there. Um, and that's where I share most of like any work related stuff, updates, films, festivals, etc., etc. That's been my primary point of access.
Right on, man. Well, buddy, I do thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you doing this. I have one question left. Our podcast, it's called "Is Breakfast Included?" And if we were having breakfast, what would you have?
I would be having uh oh my goodness. It's like it's like a comfort food breakfast. It would be like gravy on biscuits,
Oh,
sausage gravy on
yeah,
biscuits. And can I overdo it?
yeah, you can overdo it, man.
I'd kind of want a waffle on the side. I
A
might
big
not survive
a
this
Belgian
breakfast.
waffle or a thin waffle?
A Belgian waffle.
Okay, yeah, all right, man.
I might not walk out of this breakfast, but
We'll roll you out.
yes.
Well, buddy, thanks so much for your time, man. It's been good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much.
Right on, Andre LeBlanc. What a great time, man. I had a great time chatting with him and getting to know all this stuff about him. You can find out more about Andre at Instagram at Andre underscore Leb, Leb. You could also find him on Vimeo if you just search creator. His short film creator will come up. And watch Alter on YouTube. Alter Films. There's a lot of great stuff on there, including his movie. While you're online, check out isbreakfast.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram from there. Rate and review our show, please, at Apple Podcasts. It helps us out a lot. Slide on over to YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that notification button. And while you're there, pick up a shirt, man. Help us out. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. Just joking. I want to thank Andre for taking the time to talk to us. Remember, support independent artists. All right, guys, I'm done. Have a great day. I'll talk to you next week.